Right then, so part 2 of the video, and as you can probably see, probably not what we wanted to be doing. So this is Andrew's Fabia. If you remember it from the first video, that's it did 260 horsepower and 400 foot-pound of torque with methanol, which had its consequences. So he didn't even get it home, just driving it as like he'd nicked it from here, and come back a few hours later saying it's running a little bit lumpy. Went out, had a little run in it, and realised it was dead. So we've definitely found the limits of the 1.6 engine. Obviously, in the pursuit of chasing every last horsepower, these sort of things happen. It's nice when it doesn't happen on a customer's car, but sometimes when the customer wants what he can't have, or it transpires he can't have, it is what it is. So it's not often that companies will put out the bad stuff, but we're hopefully going to turn this into a positive, because we're doing Andrew a smoking deal on this anyway. There's no way anybody else would rebuild somebody's 90,000 mile old track day abused engine. But it were hard lines. He weren't really doing anything wrong. He were driving it as we'd sort of intended, but maybe not as the factory had intended. So it is what it is. Andrew's happy. He came back, it weren't running right. We gave him one of our cars and sent him home, and come up with a game plan to deal with this in the best way possible. And as usual, most customers don't want to have any less than what they just enjoyed. So we'll look at what went wrong, and then we'll look at what we're going to do to make it better. But let's see. So what we've found is Bobby's had 360 foot-pound of torque, and he's got it some right hammer. Absolutely abuses it everywhere, and he's not had an engine problem whatsoever. I think he's probably done more miles than this now. But this one had 400 foot-pound, and if you look, the connecting rods did not like it. So as you can see there, that is like a banana. So when this is bent, it's not just bent the rod. I don't know if this is the worst one, but you can see it's pushed the piston into the side of the bore, but I think, is it that one or is it the other one? It really wore it must be the other one. It really wore down the side of the piston as well. There you see, it wore down all the rings and everything. So it scuffed the bore, the pistons are knackered, and when it's pushed it out so bad, it's wore the big end bearings as well. So both of them together might make one good bearing. That's what it should be like, or thereabouts. So these are absolutely ghost. So that's not good. The crank's knackered, the bore's knackered. Obviously the pistons are, the rods are. So basically the most effective way of sorting that out would have been just put a full new engine in, really, by the time we'd rebuilt another engine and messed about. So what we sort of come up with, the idea was just drop a 2 litre bottom end in there, a 2 litre engine should I say, because they've got bigger valves, bigger bore, longer stroke. So to drop a 2 litre in, and that should cure all the problems. But then Andrew sort of said, well, if I'm having a 2 litre and this turbo's already at the maximum, what can we do with that? And I'm not a big fan of that turbo, the GTD 1752 on a 2 litre engine. There's people putting bigger comp wheels in and stuff like that, and it's just ridiculous. Anybody building a hybrid out of one of them turbos needs to be very, very careful. The turbine flows the limit on them. That's why I don't like them on the 2 litres. They flow that much more air, even at sort of 240, 250 horsepower. They seem to be really on edge. You need to only sort of, you've got like 1,500 to 4,000 RPM on the 2 litre, in my opinion. Once you rev them past that, things start to go a little bit wrong, and they're not the strongest of turbos. So anyway, so we had that discussion. So then he's sort of decided to, we sort of said we'll come up with a way that we can put him a 2260 turbo on there. So this is going to be a 2 litre conversion with the 2260. This engine is actually the 20-odd thousand mile, whatever it was, low mileage one that came out of Steph's caddy when we built the full all singing, all dancing engine. So it's been repurposed, Andrew will be happy because it's nice low mileage one. We know this literally was running a month ago in Steph's caddy, so we know it was an absolutely perfect engine. It did what it needed to do. So we'll get it thrown in. Whether we record stuff in between, I'm not too sure. We're fairly busy, so I don't want to get in too close to everybody. But we'll get it running again, and it is what it is. There's going to be some people that absolutely love that this has happened, but two fingers up to you. We're looking after Andrew. We're going to make the car better than it ever was, and we're going to do what he should have done from the start. He's still going to end up with 5-speed gearbox, which I'm still a little bit apprehensive about, but it is what it is. So we'll get it sorted. I'll go from there. Right then. This might be a second part of the video. I'm not too sure whether it's going to be beginning again, or what we filmed first might be started. I'm not too sure. We'll see. But basically, Andrew blew brains out of his Fabia, which, what to be expected, he drives it like he's stolen it. So it is what it is. So we had a bit of an agreement. We got a few tests that we wanted to do. It'd always been in the back of my mind that what would a 1.6 car do if we just put a 2-litre engine in. So as Andrew forced, that's what we're going to do. So we sorted a decent deal out for Andrew, so it didn't cost him everything. And basically, we've made his car better, or at least that was the plan to start with. So the 1.6 and the 2-litre engine, we've discussed it before, they're very, very similar. The architecture's the same, slightly shorter, so there's a few things that are in different places, but the bore's smaller and the valves are a lot smaller. So they are quite airflow limited. So in theory, what you'd think could happen, you put a 2-litre engine in there, it's just going to make more power and more torque straight off the bat. That turned out not to be the case. The main problem we had was this little bugger, which is the airflow meter. This is only 70mm on here. On a 2-litre engine, it's normally 80mm. But the problem is the strategy in here for reading the math values were all completely skewed when we decided to put an engine that was nearly half a litre bigger behind it. So that caused a lot of problems. We didn't just get turn the key and it just go out there and drive fine and just want a little bit of tweaks here and there. It just did not want to cruise. It did not want to full throttle. Tom, who's filming this, was driving and he didn't like it. So that was the main problem that we found. So that was really difficult. We got over that on the road. It seemed pretty nippy. It weren't too slow. We expected it to be a bit quicker than it was, maybe EGTs to be a bit lower than they were, but we said let's get it on the dyno and see what we can do, which we'll look at that in a second. But anyway, the other difference from a 1.6 to a 2-litre engine is basically, I'll throw that down there, the ECU on these is a Continental and on the 2 litres is a Bosch. So I'll put a picture of what one of them looks like, but they're totally different. So they work totally differently, which also means this wiring's different, which not in many ways, we could have probably repinned this and made it work, but there are a few differences that Paul weren't happy to start messing about with. It was just easier just to swap the full engine loom. But if you look, oh dear, don't drop that. That's only that plug. The other plug here comes from the car chassis side. There are quite a few needed repinning on there as well to make it work. But we've sorted that out. The lambda sensors on the car side, so we had to repin that. The map sensor, I don't know if there are any difference in map sensor, but I think that ties into that plug. So quite a bit of difference in there. So that took a little bit of time, probably 5 or 6 hours to check and then do it. So that's that. Then, obviously, because we've got the bigger air filter, none of this stuff fitted. So we had to change all that. Then you're onto the sort of meaty bits that are different about a 1.6 versus a 2 litre. At least when you're talking about the old Mark 6 and this sort of shape. When you go into Mark 7s, there's some crossover and there's like Delphi and some 1.6 have got Bosch, but forget about that. That's not to do with this today. So the pump, this is a Siemens pump as well, which these are sort of more like a CP1H pump that comes on like the Audis and stuff like that. Sort of an in-between a CP3 and a CP4, so it'll do high pressures, but it won't do it won't do what we needed it to do. And the metering valve works totally differently to a Bosch one, so you can't run a Bosch management with this CP3 pump, Siemens pump. So that's that. So a few little bits different. Obviously the leak-off pipes are different. The rail's totally different. The regulator's totally different. The sensor's the same, but we've put a bigger one in this anyway. And the injectors, these are totally different. These are more like a PA, they are a piezo injector, but these are Continental Siemens again. So these are more akin to like a Mark 7 Golf or the earlier round port Mark 6 Golf with the piezo injectors. So they're not going to work with the management that we need for the 2 litre engine. So in essence, once we've swapped all this stuff, which I'll throw in, trip over it all. Once you've swapped all this stuff, we've basically ended up with this engine now is the same as what's in the Ibiza. So when we swapped it all over, Andrew said, can I reuse the GTD 1752 turbo? And I said, yes, no problem, but it's already at its limit. And I don't like that turbo on these 2 litre engines. These flow a lot more air. I don't like how they drive. The too torque, you end up limiting them down and you don't get the revs, which these really do like to rev, especially when you've got cams in it like this one. So we decided to do him a deal where we end up keeping all that 1752 stuff. We'll put it on one of the lads' cars or whatever, and we'll swap him for a 2260 kit. And then he's not going to be stuck at that 250, 260 mark that he was at before. We can go above that, and actually, if he's spending some money, we're making more power. Nobody's ever happy with spending more money and ending up with the same power, no matter how much better it drives or how much more reliable it's going to be. So let's look at the dyno, at what we had and what we ended up with. So if you look on here, this is the 245 is what it did before with a 1.6 engine. The 263 is what it did with the MEF. We never tried it with the 2 litre and the MEF and the Siemens injection, but basically we're stuck at the 250 horsepower mark, and it was just running way, way too hot. So what we ended up doing when we swapped all this, we'll create another monster, but the tuning's been ridiculously easier, like tens of hours lower than it was with the Siemens ECU. We were never going to get it how we wanted it. It was always going to be running too hot at that power. The duration's quite long on the Siemens. I think that's the main problem. So if I hide all these ones, which will take me a second because there's absolutely tons. So as you can see here, they're a bit far apart, these, which I'll move that back up to there now. I can move it up there. You can see this is what we've ended up with. 304 horsepower. This is with 50-50 MEF at the minute, and this is on what we're considering a drag tune, because originally Andrew wanted a power gate setup so we could have a daily tune, which can be sort of an in-between. Then you could have a drag tune, which is absolutely pushed to the limit, or a track tune, which is dialed really far back so that the EGTs are low and you can just beat on it all day. So obviously drag race, you don't get the sort of heat accumulation that you're going to get on a track day. So, and the road, you just can't thrash it enough to make it hot. So you can always, pretty much, if anybody wants the switchable maps or a power gate with 3 different maps, that's what you're looking for. Daily, track, drag, and your daily one's usually the in-between one. So that's what we ended up with, absolutely everything. EGTs are about 920s, 930s on a long run with that, which is too much for the daily. So I'll start with a street tune. So we've done every one of these. It's getting a bit complicated because every one of these tunes has been run with and without water injection. So I think I'll get rid of that one as well, the old 1.6 engine, because that's not really helping us at the minute. It's getting in the way. So as you can see on the daily tune, we've got 274 without the MEF, 302 with, which all these are sort of above the 400 foot-pound mark, which the daily tune here, it's up at 425, which is pretty good. And if you can see as well, we're revving this all the way to 5300, which with a 1.6 management, it will never happen. Oh, after 4.5 grand, it will just get that hot. You just melt things. So then we've got the drag, which I'll show the drag without the drag without MEF 281, and then where are we? The main important one for Andrew is track tunes here, which the track tune, we've turned it down to 269 horsepower, and with the MEF is at 299. So there's not a massive difference between them with MEF, and there's not a huge difference between them without the MEF, but this is, I think, from the top tune at 920s, 930s to the lowest tune, we're talking like 830s, 840s, Tom, something like that. EGTs, yeah, on a long pull. So there's knocking on 80 to 100 degrees lower EGTs just by dropping out 7 or 8 horsepower. Well, what is it? 12 horsepower. 12 horsepower. So it's 860 is constant. Yeah. So it's a ton better, which obviously we're talking on a dyno pull, and we're running it on a longer pull as well, which is like a long, really long fourth gear pull. So we're not just testing it on this short period. It's quite a significant decrease, because 100 degrees in the EGTs, your oil, your coolant, everything's going to be much better. And obviously you've not just got that, you've got your heat soak from your intercooler as well, so your power will, if you're running that all the time, will drop a lot. So there's a lot of graphs to try and make sense of. But basically this is, I've not driven it on the road yet, but I'd say on the daily tune it'll be completely smoke free, and on the drag tune it'll probably have a haze at the best. Especially with the MEF on, we're going to have a little bit more smoke, but talking without MEF at the minute. So I think, looking at what we've got here, I'm really happy. We're going to send Andrew out on his 269 horsepower tune because I don't trust him yet. He'll have to earn the right to have these bigger tunes, because he needs to get all the way to Scotland before we start sending him a power gate and letting him have some more tunes on there. But they're all ready, they're waiting for him. I'm sure he'll be happy, and this will just drive a ton better. So sometimes pushing things a little bit too far can turn into something a little bit better, and having the customer being reasonable and understanding that they were asking for probably a bit more than the car could take, and the engine's had a lot of punishment. But this is probably the first engine we've ever bent the rods in from sheer power. So, because there are no other telltale signs, the injectors all tested out fine, everything were absolutely perfect. It literally just bent the rods, which then were a knock-on effect and caused a lot of other problems. So that was literally just a torque thing, which this was running about 40 foot-pounds more than Bobby was running, which I don't know if we did that to try and kill his gearbox. I keep telling Andrew to get a 6-speed. But we'll see it when we go on the road test. He's got a constant reminder that he needs a 6th gear, because we put a ECU off a car that's normally got 6 gears. The dash is just saying change up when you're in 5th gear all the time. So it serves him right for not getting a 6-speed when I told him to. So the weather's nice. Managed to get out in Andrew's Fabia. God, it's so warm. I have to put window down a bit. So this is on the drag tune. It drives obviously perfectly fine, because pretty much the only difference in the daily tune to the drag tune is literally just the top end sort of fuel, and the boost pretty much the same, the part throttle drivability the same. And this in essence is just R&B for with a 5-speed gearbox, so, and that's got really long gears anyway, so it's probably just the same, maybe a tiny bit longer 3rd and 4th and 5th. So yeah, it goes pretty well, definitely not to be sniffed at. Yeah, this is quicker than the springs will allow. This does drive really good. I think you definitely want some better suspension on this. Definitely not slow. Flick that water injection off. See what the difference is in smoke. whatsoever when you turn that water injection off, so that's good. It's exactly what we wanted. So, just been on the road in this, what a few days ago to be fair, but we need to, I've watched back what we filmed and Danny's edited it and put it all together and says it's a bit confusing, but I don't think it is, but Danny thinks it is, so if anybody were confused watching this, I'm sorry, it's me. But drives really good on the road, didn't bother doing any launches or anything like that because it just wants to wheel spin, and it's all about how much you want to kill the clutch and rag somebody else's car on a manual transmission, so I'd rather not do that, but I'm pretty confident this will do, so I5 to 60, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'm sat on a stool because this has been made from Andrew's old dead engine, so this is old diff there, bent con rods, this clutch cover's not his I don't think, but is what it is. Then a nice leather top, so that's a little bonus that we're going to strap in his car and let him take home with him. But one of the confusions I'd probably started was not really been 100% clear that we put the 2 litre engine in this, running on the 1.6 management, wiring loom, injectors, fuel pump, and we only gained about 10 horsepower, something like that. We'll put a graph up that shows comparison, but the reason for that, I think, can't be 100% sure. The injection duration is already really long on these anyway, so a lot of the fuel's going to be going, not to waste, but not being effectively used as good as it could be. Whereas when we put the 2 litre Bosch management versus the Siemens, that's got a really nice tight window, and that always works good on these 2 litre engines. That's what we found anyway. The tighter window you can get on the injection, the better these seem to work. So we've got what we've got. It works really, really well. I'm sure Andrew's going to be happy. If somebody else wants this conversion doing, you're probably better off not waiting until your engine's got banana con rods. If you bring it, I don't really want to do them, but if you bring it to us, bring it running, and you're going to be able to sell your old engine and get some money back. But if I were doing this again, I'd do the full conversion using everything, the radiators, all that sort of stuff, straight away, because we tried putting the big radiator on this before we put all the 2 litre stuff in, and it caused a bit of problem. So you basically, what you really want to get is a 2 litre Ibiza. So if you've got a 1.6 Ibiza or a 1.6 Fabia or a 1.6 Audi A1, get a 2 litre Ibiza, so they're usually the cheapest, but you can get a 2 litre A1. Get one of those, a complete car if you can, and just put everything in. Or if you don't get a complete car, you want basically everything from the bulkhead forwards, and you're still going to have to do a little bit of repinning and stuff like that to the interior loom. And then the other problem that we had, we spent a fair bit of time, which you can probably do it again remotely, I'd have thought, getting the immobiliser from the 1.6 to work on the 2 litre ECU, so you don't have the immobiliser warning coming up on the dash. And one of the other downsides of this, I don't believe the aircon's working properly, even though the ECU and the coding and everything's all in there from the Ibiza that had air conditioning, so it's probably a climate control issue, which is why we originally didn't want to go down the route of putting the Bosch management on there. That would, it'd have been easier if we just put the 1.6 management on with a 2260 turbo and it did 270, 280 horsepower. Not as much as it's done now, but just a bit more. It'd have been happy, it'd have been quick and easy, and that did not work out for the best. But we've done it now, we know where it is. We get asked this quite a bit of people, what's the best way of doing it? Now we know the best way of doing it, and that's just put everything from one of them and either live with the immobiliser problem on the dash or spend ages fixing it. So hopefully this has been a good video. Hopefully we've turned something that were a bit of a pain into something that were good. I know Andrew's going to be happy with it. He should be here by now anyway, but it is what it is. And yeah, cheers for watching.